how then will you ensure that after leaving the EU, DEFRA isn't left with those environmental targets that other departments have absolutely no incentive to deliver? I mean, we've heard that there are concerns from the Chancellor, from the Treasury, from the Department of Transport, from DCLG. We've heard a lot of concerns. How can you guarantee then that cross-departmental working?
Well, one of the things that I've found is ministers across government departments are anxious to work with us in order to ensure that we maintain high environmental standards and maintain our legal obligations. So I think it was striking, wasn't it, when in a separate area on, for example, the common fisheries policy, we published just last week, almost exactly a week ago, a fisheries white paper, which was a cross-government document, a commitment on marine conservation alongside policing access to our waters, which reflected the interests of every government department. Before its publication, some had speculated, perhaps mischievously, that there might be a tension between DEFRA's ambitions and other government departments' ambitions. But as you will have seen from the publication, no such tension was evident. In the same way, Parliament, having given us a clear instruction on what it is that should be in this new environmental governance body, I'm looking forward to working with all my colleagues across government in order to deliver it.
But in your own letter to the Treasury, you have, it was claimed that you claimed, in fact, that the Chancellor was to blame for limiting powers, blocking plans to give the new post-Brexit environmental watchdog the power, for example, to fine government and local authorities if they fail to increase recycling or cut pollution.
I think it's a respected position in government not to comment on any leaked documents, and I think that you may be referring to a document that may have been leaked, a version of which may have appeared in one newspaper. So I won't go down that particular.
So as far as you're concerned, everyone's on the same page as you?
On the same page, singing from the same hymn sheet, in harmony, as one, Addy Dem, one happy family, a nest of singing birds.
And yet, that's not what we hear from what we've heard from witnesses looking at who've given evidence to our inquiry in terms of what's set out in the consultation and what we've been seeing from you in government.
Well, I think, by their fruits shall you know them. The judgment must be what is it that we bring forward in legislation and in policy. Of course, across government, people will test propositions, run ideas past one another, and people will, just as Geraint and I were earlier. I respect what Geraint wants to do. I'm not certain that the way in which he wants to achieve it is right, so I'd want to have advice before agreeing to it. But on this occasion, notwithstanding the fact that we come from slightly different starting points, we both want to achieve broadly the same thing, and I think that's the case across government.
But do you not agree there should actually be targets set in order to deliver?
I think, yes, well, I think it's certainly the case that there should be targets, and that's one of the things that the 25-year Environment Plan inter alia does do. And in fact, at the moment, we're having a conversation about precisely which targets and which metrics government and government bodies should be held to account against for delivering.
It's not a nest of singing birds, though, is it, Secretary of State? I mean, you've got the Chief Secretary to the Treasury making a speech to the LSE saying there's enough hot air and smoke at the Environment Department already and taking the mick out of your name. I mean, that's, you're really doing a great job of trying to paper over the cracks, but there are deep fissures between you and the Treasury on this matter, are there not? That's why the consultation was so weak. That's why your own party had a revolt and why Parliament chucked it out.
Well, the Chief Secretary and I are great friends. One of the great things about being great friends is that we can crack jokes. I think it's a very British thing, isn't it? That the closer your relationship, the more likely you are to crack jokes about one another. And it's a sign of the strength of the relationship between myself and the Chief Secretary that I enjoy the jokes that she cracks and take them in good part. And I think it's the same thing, I think, more broadly. The consultation I mentioned earlier was deliberately framed in order to be open, and Parliament has given a clear view. I respect that view. I think, I can't remember if it was in front of this committee or when I was interviewed on broadcast, I said, I absolutely respect the view of the House Lords. The point of having a consultation is to say we have certain ambitions and certain hopes, and we would welcome a range of views.
It's pretty clear what the Treasury's view is, though, isn't it? I mean, you know, a joke is a way of delivering a truth in a palatable way, and what this is saying is, you've overstepped your brief, get back in your box, and crack on with you know, making this as weak as possible. That's essentially what happened when your plan went to Cabinet. That's why it was so weak, and that's why Parliament and your own backbenchers have had to intervene to make sure there's targets, powers to fine, and those things. It's been a humiliation, hasn't it, really?
Well, I've seen, witnessed, indeed undergone humiliations in the past, and this is certainly not that, no. I think one of the things about the Chief Secretary's, I thought, rather witty comments were they related to air quality. And of course, one of the things about air quality is that we have we may go on to discuss it, a very, very high level of ambition, and that high level of ambition is there in government documents, government policies that have been cleared across the range of all government departments. So, you know, I think that you know, humour, like beauty, is often in the eye of the beholder. But as I say, I thought it was a very well delivered, very well argued speech with some very good jokes from a very good friend.
Okay, so it's all just about the